Practical preparedness lessons are always good to learn from, especially when you get to save some money. Hey, I'm Todd with Ready Your Future, and welcome to another podcast. I serve up preparedness information so that you can be your family's survival guide. Today, we're going to be bouncing off of an article from Survival Blog, and the article is called Practical Prepping. There's a lot of great information here, and I'm happy to share some of this. Like always, I'm going to link it up for you so you can go check it out. I'm going to be bouncing off of some very specific highlights that I've pulled off of here. So let's go ahead and jump in. Again, coming to us from survivalblog.com, Practical Prepping by KF. So let's start. I've heard it said that you can make a small fortune in horse breeding if you start with a large fortune. Prepping is a lot like that too. You can be ready for almost anything if you throw enough money at the problem set that is prepping. Listen, I want to I highlighted that because I think it's so important and so real. If you're going into preparedness without a lot of planning, if you're just going in there and just throwing money at situations and thinking like, hey, I'm going to be prepared and do that, you really have another thing coming because you're going to throw a lot of money away. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. And one of the things I love about this article is they're talking about how to do prepping, how to do it practically, and how to save money while you're doing it, or how to do it with a very specific budget. All right. So let's go ahead and continue on here. CL, who's the person who KF is talking about here, talks about that they came together, or they came to know each other because of shared circumstances. And one of those things is shared faith in Jesus and then shared interest in amateur radio. And I think that's a really important thing to remember as you are looking for other people to prep with. Maybe you're looking to form a preparedness group. You're looking to find like-minded people. You don't want to start from just the preparedness place, right? You don't want to start from looking at people who just want to be prepared for SHTF or the end of the world as you know it. You have to have some shared, some shared circumstances, some shared ideas, some shared understandings. Because if not, if you're only coming from preparedness, when you get to a point where you're struggling, like maybe faith is a certain issue, right? And you get to a point where, okay, you got to make some decisions, and one person is a person of faith and another person is not, well, then you're going to have some conflict there. And so it's one of those things that, we talk about often. If you're trying to find other people to prep with, then go to places where people are more prone to prep. And we've talked about gardening, people that are into firearms. This specific situation here, CL is a CERT instructor. And that's how KF, the person who's writing this, actually met her. All right, so let's go ahead and move into this one, okay? Continue reading. We didn't agree 100%, though there was plenty of common ground. When she talked about bugging out, I was struggling to find a diplomatic way to say, you're out of your mind. In the end, I didn't say anything, but later I invited her to go camping for 2 days for an amateur radio activity. While she did a great job on the radio stuff, it was pretty obvious that camping was difficult for her and not something she enjoyed. In a subsequent discussion, she recognized that bugging out probably isn't the best idea if she finds camping difficult and stressful. I love this idea, first of all, that the person who's writing this was diplomatic. He let this person, CL, come to their own understanding and their own realization, because the person that he's talking about here is able to critically think. A really important aspect to when you get to preparedness and thinking about all the things that could go wrong. And so going camping can give you a good understanding, good idea. So when you go camping, you're taking all your stuff with you. You're really prepared for the weekend or for the week or whatever you're going to do. You have your food, you get around the fire, you got time to do that. You're not worried about anybody else coming, and maybe doing harm to you. And so in that, if you're having troubles there, difficulty there, then in a true bug out situation, you're going to have a whole lot more trouble. So I love this idea, and I love the fact that CL, the person that he's talking about here, was able to come to this understanding on her own. So moving on here, CL is a very fast learner. Once she realized that bugging out should be the last resort for her instead of the first resort, she threw herself into prepping for staying in place. Great information. So I want to go ahead and go into this because it talks a little bit about being a CERT instructor. So a CERT course, Community Emergency Response Team, is a great place to start. It can be started online by using the following link. So that link is actually, it's a bad link. It doesn't go to the actual course that he's trying to find, but I found it. I'm going to link it up for you so you can go to it. He says here, it's a free class developed by FEMA on how people in a community can respond to a disaster. Now, I love what he says here. To those of you who think anything connected to FEMA is anathema, I have two things to say. First, even a stopped clock is right twice a day. And second, if you're okay with a Baofeng radio, which is manufactured in a hostile country using slave labor, then you should have no problem with FEMA. The class teaches very practical stuff, including basic fire suppression and hazmat, triage and first aid in a disaster, basic urban search and rescue, communications in a disaster, and psychology of disasters. The class emphasizes working as a team. There is a version of the class that is tailored to teenagers too. So I want to go to that course really quick here, because like I said, I'm going to link it up to you for you. And here is that FEMA course that you can go to. It has a couple of lessons there, the course objectives. But if you go to FEMA, and I'll link this one up too, here's a lot of self-paced courses that you can do. Independent study courses is what they call them. And so just picking out a few here, an introduction to hazardous materials, building an earthquake, or building for the earthquakes of tomorrow, animals in a disaster, community planning, awareness, special events, contingency planning. This is just the first page, right? Preparedness for child care providers. There's a lot here, and this is just the first page. There's like 13 plus pages that you can go to and just do some self study if you're interested in doing that. Now, I love the thing that he talked about here when he was talking about FEMA, and I know in the preparedness community here, we've talked a lot about FEMA, and you hear about FEMA camps and all that kind of stuff. One of the things that you hear about is like FEMA is going to have the camps, right? And they're going to do all that. And you remember the coffins, you had pictures of the coffins and all that. Think about how prepared FEMA is right now. They're not very prepared to just be able to handle natural disasters, much less in a big, SHTF situation, be able to set up a lot of camps. That's just my take. You might be completely on a different page and we can disagree on that one, but I just don't think that they would be able to do that. However, I do think that you should take advantage of the FEMA courses that are there just to be able to learn and get some information. Like I said, I'm going to link those up. All right, let's go ahead and get back to the article here. Moving on, CL teaches CERT courses to anyone who will take them. She meets a lot of people in the courses of these classes, and she's become good at figuring out which ones might be good candidates to join a prepping group, and she started more than 10 years ago. So prepping as a group is a fantastic idea because nobody can have everything or know everything needed. If you think of each person in the group bringing in one essential skill and one essential piece of equipment, the value of a group starts to be apparent. What CL has found is that most people bring in more than one essential skill and pieces of equipment, which means that the group doesn't have to be as large. I love this piece right here because CL is putting herself in a place that makes it easy to find people who are interested in preparedness. So imagine, being able to be an instructor of a class, and you are teaching this class and letting people know, all the stuff about, the course and all that good stuff. But in the meantime, you're interacting with people, you're building relationships with them, and there's going to be some that are more prone to, preparedness and wanting to get better prepared. I think the more you learn, the more you realize how fragile our world is. And so the fact that she's able to make these connections, and then the ability to start reading people and say, okay, that person looks like they have a good head on their shoulders. Maybe that's a person that I really want to know and I really want to connect with. And so I think that's important. It says here in this, in the article that trust is an important component to the group. I think that's important. She talks about here a little bit later on he presses her about, getting to know more about how she figures things out. And she mentioned talking to people at church, going to door, and then Facebook posts. But she says the most effective way to find people is just face to face. And I think that's the way to do it as well. You know, there's a lot of places online where you can go and you can try to connect with a group, and then they have meeting times and meeting places and all that kind of stuff. You got to be real careful about all of that when you do that, because you never know, what you're going to find there. You never know who you're going to run into. I've heard maybe just one or two people in the whole time that I've run Prepper website and the podcast and all of that stuff, that they had a good experience, but then it didn't continue. Other people, like, they go and it's kind of, weird, and there's just some weirdness there. And that's really what I have encountered as well. So you just got to really be prepared. When you are finding people to be able to prep with, being face to face, being able to know them, build that relationship with them, I think it's really important. So moving on here, it says, the prepping group is a loose group, and it isn't a commune. The members don't live together as is described in some books about prepping. They have their own homes and land and their own assets. They also have a well-developed communications network that is independent of infrastructure, which, to safeguard their privacy and security, I will not describe. The group is like a cooperative. I think that's really important there. So the prepper group that CL started years ago has grown and matured. It includes some people holding local public offices who, in their official capacity, see the group as an asset that can be used in different types of disasters. When it's possible and where there's a shared goal of public safety, working with local government officials can be a very good thing, but be cautious. CL takes every opportunity to learn useful skills and acquire useful information. So this is one of those really important practical lessons that she picked up. She wanted to be able to do a firearm. She wanted to have a firearm for self-defense. Eventually, right? People go there, right? Gardening and firearms. Eventually, if you're in preparedness. The thing is, like, he was a little skeptical because, I don't know, he's like, he says here, allowing her to have a firearm kind of, concerned her. But she found in her research, she found a group called Project Appleseed and their marksmanship course. If you've never looked into Project Appleseed, you really need to look into them. They have courses for young kids. You can go and you can learn how to shoot. They give you the story of the American Revolution. And so it's just a really great organization to be a part of. It says here, the first piece of advice that I gave her was get a shotgun, not a handgun. She wanted a handgun. When I explained that a shotgun is easier to use, especially with little or no training, that it's effective against a group of assailants, and that if you have to use it in a neighborhood, there will be less chance of unintended casualties, she agreed that a shotgun was a good choice. So anyway, she went to Project Appleseed and she became very proficient in firearms. She borrowed CL's .22 rifle, and it was a really great experience. So again, Project Appleseed, if you're not familiar with them, go ahead and look them up. So another practical preparedness lesson here is that CL has developed a life of frugality. She tries to do preparedness, but she's very smart about how she moves forward with it. For instance, one of the things that she talks about one of the things that she bought was a small greenhouse so that she could get her garden started a lot earlier. She also invested in a small wood stove to be able to save money heating the home, and you get to do that with wood. So they talked a little bit about she and her daughter splitting wood and maintaining the wood pile. There's a picture there of the wood pile that they have to be able to save money as they are prepping and trying to do that. Another thing here is she bought small solar panels and some batteries. Again, she's into ham radio, and so I think that was a smart move to be able to have that communication. And she bought a Berkey. One of the things here that was really important as you were reading is, and KF brings this up in the article, is that these weren't purchases that were just made off of a whim. These were purchases that were made with a lot of research, that took a lot of time, took a lot of saving of money to be able to buy these. So you think about buying a battery in solar panels, right? Being able to buy a Berkey. Those things aren't, less than $100 purchases. So someone who's living very frugal, is not bringing in a lot of money, is going to have to do that. But again, going back to the fact that it's all about planning. It's all about making sure you make good plans and you know exactly what you're doing. One of the things she mentioned here is that before moving water into her Berkey, she built another water filter. She said, I'll put the river water through the homemade filter to remove the worst of the particulates and stuff. And then I put it through the Berkey. That way the Berkey will last longer. So again, thinking through critical thinking, how can I make my Berkey last longer and the water filters that are in there? It's really great to understand that. She goes on, she learned to grow some of her own food and medicinal plants on her small plot. So you see a little bit of, in the pictures, you see a little bit of her raised beds, right, that she has there. And they're off to the ground, probably to help her. I think she's an older person, so being able to maneuver and get all the things that she needs to together, right, and not hurt her back. Moving on, over the years, she has learned to do water bath canning, which allows her to preserve some of what she grows. She also gets together with other people who have made more land or fruit trees and helps them can what they have in exchange for some of the fruit or produce. I love that. It's like, hey, I will help you gather these, this fruit, these vegetables. I will help you gather this. Maybe I'll even show you how to can that. But if I can get a little bit of that as well. And so that's a way to be able to prep. Keeps you healthy, keeps you out there in nature, keeps you moving, keeps you, engaged with other people, and you get to build relationships with other people. You get to know them and they get to know you, people who have fruit trees. I think that makes a whole lot of sense. Moving on, it says that she learned to raise chickens, right? That's like the next step. Do you see a progression here? It's like someone who really truly is into preparedness and is really planning, you see a progression that starts to happen, right? And it's like, okay, I can really benefit from this. I can really benefit from this. I can really benefit from this. And not just throwing a bunch of, not looking at, I saw a video on YouTube, I read an article, I saw something on social media. Somebody was talking about this really cool, this piece of gear. And so then I went and bought it. No, the way that CL is approaching this is very methodical. And I think that's really important for anybody who is in preparedness, and especially if you want to practically prep, right? I think that's smart. Goes on here, a few years ago, she showed me a solar food dehydrator that she built herself. I got the idea from a copy of Mother Earth News that I was reading at the library, she said. I love that piece of it, that she's not afraid to do DIY projects and then also be able to get out there and experiment and figure things out. And so when you read the article, it says that she did have that dehydrator for a while, but it eventually broke down because she is using wood that she's salvaging and things like that. But the experience from being able to do that was so valuable. And then being able to just build another one wouldn't be that difficult after you already have that experience. So he breaks down at the very end of this article, he breaks down all the practical lessons here. So let's just go ahead and go through these. Make use of available resources. So FEMA CERT training and Project Appleseed are good places to start. Again, if you are not familiar with Project Appleseed, go check them out. They've got some really great stuff. I knew at one time one of the guys that would relay he was an instructor for the firearms, but he also would relay the story of Project Appleseed and the American Revolution. And it was just really, really good stuff. All right. And so we can benefit from some of these organizations that have, that have courses that you can learn from. Red Cross First Aid, however you feel about Red Cross or whatever, they've got some basic first aid courses, CPR courses that can save lives. All right, moving on here, join a group, right? Join a group even if you have to start one yourself. And that is one of those that I talk about often, is like get to know people around your circle of influence, right? Maybe your neighbors, definitely your family, people at church, people that you bump up against every single day. You know them already. You already have shared circumstances. You already have relationships with. And if they are prone to preparedness, especially now with all the disasters that we have had lately, I think more people are open to it. So you can start talking about, You don't even have to start talking about preparedness. You can say, hey, I got a generator, right? And why'd you get a generator? Well, I've lost power last, 2 times for over a week, this last year, lost food, and it just makes sense to be better prepared. That can open up a conversation. Start small and make incremental improvements. I think that is really a really big lesson for those, because listen, a lot of the times when we come into preparedness, we come into preparedness because of fear. And maybe our eyes are open, maybe we realize how fragile the world is, and then we start, panicking, and we're like, hey, at any time the balloon can go up. And there's plenty of videos, there's plenty of articles, there's plenty of podcasts that talk about that, right? Is that at any time we can be, EMP, and we can be blown back to the 1800s, and people are dying and all of that stuff. So you don't want to get into preparedness that way, because you're going to make a lot of bad decisions. But if you're able to plan and make small incremental moves to grow, I think that's always important. Make good use of what you have. Be generous whenever you can. Listen, there are going to be times in an SHTF situation, or even if it's the end of the world as we know it kind of situation, where you are going to need other people. You're going to need their relationships. You're going to need their comfort. You're going to need someone to talk to, but you're going to need maybe their skills and their abilities. And so it's smart to be able to be generous now, because people will remember you then. Make good use of what other people want to throw away. How awesome is that? There are plenty of places. I mean, you might not be someone who's on social media, but maybe you are. There's plenty of things on Facebook Marketplace, on Craigslist. There's a bunch of different places like that next door where people will just give it away. I know my local Facebook group, my neighborhood, people are always putting things out on the curb and saying, hey, look, this is free for anybody who wants it. Just come get it. And so you have that in places all over the world, where it's just easier to be able to get rid of something, maybe instead of trying to sell it or whatever it might be. But make use of what people are trying to throw away. Be creative and willing to learn. I think that is a really important lesson. And the thing is you want to make sure that you are learning from people who are knowledgeable, people that have experience, and really dig deep into it. Do some research before you go hog wild into something that, you're going to spend a lot of money and a lot of time and go crazy in. And then lastly, take what you do very seriously, but don't take yourself seriously. I love that. I love that piece of advice. Sometimes in preparedness, we can get really crazy and we can like, oh my gosh, you're going to die, and it's like, we want to save the world and all of that. And we wind up turning people off. We don't want to turn people off. We want to turn people on to being smart and being prepared. Being prepared is just common sense. All right. So we're going to go ahead and end it there, guys. I'm going to link all this up for you so you can go and you can check it out. It is just some really great information here. And then, I really do want you to go read the whole article and go check out Survival Blog. Of course, James Wesley Rawls has a lot of good stuff over there. Well, guys, if you are looking for maybe a way to be prepared when the power goes off, you're looking for a blackout list, a checklist, go over to readyyourfuture.com. I have a way that you can sign up for the blackout checklist and gives you some more tidbits and things like that. Also, if you are interested in getting some articles, 25 preparedness articles that everyone should read, I created this a long time ago when I had Prepper website, and some of these aren't even around on the internet anymore. But if you want these, I will send them to you. You can click on them and you can get these articles. I'll have a link in the description so you can sign up and get that PDF with all these articles. All right. Well, guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me on this podcast episode. If you found value in it, I would appreciate if you give us a like, subscribe to the channel. And then also, if you click that notification bell so you are notified whenever we put out a new video. Thanks so much. God bless you. We catch you on the next video. Peace.